go ahead and get started with the day's news. On this Tuesday morning, tensions are rising in the Middle East after the president moved the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Israeli forces shot and killed more than 50 Palestinians, including children, who staged mass demonstrations and threw rocks across the border fence with Israel. Both the White House and the State Department blame Hamas for the violence. The danger around Hawaii's Kilauea volcano is growing. Hawaiian officials say new fissures opened yesterday, sending more lava to the surface. Residents in the region are advised to be on alert should they need to evacuate. First Lady Melania Trump is recovering at Walter Reed Military Hospital after undergoing a medical procedure to treat a benign kidney condition. President Trump, who visited the First Lady Monday, tweeted that the procedure was a success and that Mrs. Trump is in good spirits. The White House says she looks forward to full recovery. Now closer to home, 2 fatal crashes have been reported overnight. I just got off the phone with one of the troopers at the scene of a crash in Bighorn County that happened around 11 o'clock last night. 2 people were killed that were in an SUV. Apparently, the driver of the SUV drifted and lost control of the vehicle, struck a culvert and rolled. The vehicle ejected 3 people. 2 of those people have been confirmed as fatalities. A total of 6 people were in the vehicle, and it looks like lack of seatbelt use was a factor in this crash, but alcohol or speed do not appear to be factors right now. The other people who survived the crash were also taken to the hospital for medical attention. The investigation also involved several agencies, including the BIA. And troopers also responded to a fatal crash on State Highway 200 in Garfield County. It happened west of Jordan at mile marker 211. We're still waiting for details on that crash. You can check KTVQ.com throughout the day for more information on both of those fatal crashes. In news out of Billings, the cost of water is going up. The bill for an average home will increase by 31 cents to $76.44. The new rate will generate an estimated $1,100,000 in water revenues and $875,000 more in wastewater revenues during fiscal year 2019. The increase will assist with inflation, an aging system, infrastructure needs, and increasing regulations. Funds will also help build a reservoir facility on the West End. The city went through a rate increase last year, and many were on hand during Monday night's city council meeting to speak against it. Another rate increase may be on tap for next year. Turning to court news, the names of 3 Billings police officers disciplined for sexual encounters on the job will remain private for another day. In a ruling by Yellowstone County District Court Judge Donald Harris Monday, he decided their names should be released, but he gave lawyers 48 hours to put together an appeal to the state Supreme Court. The case centers on the officers' right to privacy versus the public's right to know, with Q2 and the Billings Gazette asking the court to release the names. 2 officers were disciplined after admitting to having sex while on duty with a police department clerk. A 3rd officer was off duty but had sex with the same clerk on city property.
I do not think that the public is going to recognize an expectation in privacy if police officers decide to have sex at City Hall or in and around a police vehicle while on duty. That is not something they ought to expect to be kept private. I don't believe the law would recognize that as a legitimate interest.
Judge Harris went on to say that police officers are given the power to infringe on our basic liberties, but with that power comes scrutiny. Once the officer's appeal is filed, Judge Harris will then decide whether his 48-hour stay will remain in effect. Meanwhile, the U.S. Supreme Court rules come the end of this month, some states could be betting on the NBA Finals. The High Court struck down a 26-year-old federal law on Monday that bans bars from gambling on baseball, basketball, football, and other sports in most states. The American Gaming Association is pleased with the ruling that gives states the final say, but for now, sports betting is still not legal here in Montana, and it would require legislative change. The administrator of the Montana Gambling Controlling Division explains.
So there is not an immediate effect of the ruling on Montana. There would need to be a lot of regulatory structure that would need to be put in place, and I don't know whether there's a big market for that here in Montana. There's definitely a lot involved in regulating that type of activity. I have heard that there's interest in that in Montana, but it will depend on the legislature's appetite for that type of gambling here in Montana.
In other court news, a 21-year-old Billings man is accused of raping a teenage girl he met online while also facing charges for allegedly using methamphetamine around his toddler. Emilio Walks was charged Monday with 1 count of sexual intercourse without consent. Prosecutors say Walks met up with a 13-year-old girl at the Lazy KT Motel in downtown Billings. Despite her saying no, Walks allegedly raped the girl, who later went to the hospital for a sexual assault exam. Court documents also state Walks and the mother of his child used methamphetamine around their 3-year-old and left loaded syringes around the home. Walks is being held on $80,000 bond. In other news, Margot Kidder, the actress best known for her role as Lois Lane in the 1978 Superman film, died at her Montana home. Kidder died Sunday at her home in Livingston at the age of 69. Her cause of death is currently unknown. Kidder starred opposite Christopher Reeve in Superman and the 3 sequels. Now we go to Yellowstone National Park, where the Steamboat Geyser erupts for the 5th time in the last 6 weeks. Take a look. The U.S. Geological Survey says Steamboat began erupting around 6:30 a.m. Sunday and lasted about 12 hours. The experts say this level of activity hasn't happened since the 1980s. Scientists do not believe Steamboat's frequent eruptions point toward an active volcanic phase for Yellowstone. Steamboat Geyser is highly variable, sometimes taking years between eruptions. At one point stayed quiet for 50 years. Billings and Laurel High School artists have made their mark on a local business, and now it's time for you to pick your favorite. Billings Senior High, Skyview, West High, Billings Central, and Laurel High School are all contending in this year's War of the Walls. Each high school paints a mural on the side of one of the local Master Loop stores. The People's Choice, to be announced this Friday, wins a traveling trophy and bragging rights for the year. The competition coincides with the annual Grad Day fundraiser this weekend. Every dime spent at a Master Lube this Saturday goes to the designated school's Graduation Day Fund. You can head to this story at KTVQ.com to cast your vote. And our last story on this Tuesday, a professional photographer in Glasgow says Netflix used his copyrighted photo in one of their shows. Sean Heavey took this photo in Glasgow in July 2010, and it's run in several publications such as National Geographic and USA Today. He says the Netflix series Beyond Stranger Things used his photo to create a concept art piece. The art in Volume 1, Episode 3 caught Heavey's attention.
I have to stand up and say, you know what, it's my image. I don't care how you spin it. I don't care what you say about it. At the end of the day, it's my photograph that you used in your production.
His attorney reached out to Netflix and they sent back this in response, saying in part, the only similarity that exists between the artwork and Mr. Heavey's photograph is the use of similar cloud formations. Copyright law, however, does not protect objects as they appear in nature. We reached out to Netflix for a response and have not heard back, and the company's in-house counsel also had no comment. Ed, as a journalist, I can tell you it does not feel good when someone takes your work and doesn't put your name on it if you put all that hard work into it. And they matched up the photo and the artwork, and every little bump in the cloud matches up. So
it's more than just 2 storm clouds, is what you're saying.
Yes. Yeah, too many similarities there. So we'll see what will become of that. But in the meantime, do we have any storm clouds in our future?